Now, in the studio to further that conversation, discussing the President's address there and progress made so far in the Feed Salon project. We are expecting to have Henry Kpaka, Minister of Agriculture, but in the studio now we have Dennis Jusu, a one-time master farmer who doubles as the Chief Executive Officer of Jamje Agricultural Company, whose operation is centered along the Mile 91 axis in the Tonkolili district. Good morning, Jusu. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You were once a farmer, and now we are in a dispensation when the President's priority is Feed Salon, which is directly tied to agriculture. How does that impact the space of farming?
I'm still a farmer, not once been a farmer.
Once a master farmer.
Of course, I'm still the master farmer.
Okay.
Great.
Yes. Actually, I think we've been yearning all along for this drive for the country to take, because I think and I still believe in what I used to say before 10 years ago, that this country will only move forward if we pay greater attention to agriculture. And it's good that now it's been a flagship program for our nation. And Sierra Leone, we are blessed with all the ecosystem that we can think of to actually move this country forward in terms of agricultural productivity, to feed our people, and also to export the excesses. Because in the 60s and the 70s, Sierra Leone was known to be the exporter of rice and also feeding their own people. It's unfortunate after the war that we've not been able to actually follow the trend of how agriculture was going. But now today, our president, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada Bio, has taken this bold step to say, I'm going to feed my people. And we are sure within the shortest possible time, with the able dynamic people that he has placed in authorities, that will be able to achieve this if all parameters are met within the shortest possible time.
Let's understand the picture of farming right now with your experience. How long were you a farmer, and what was the experience, so we could use that to compare and contrast being a farmer right now?
Definitely, you know, our country was being exposed to a peasant way of doing things. That is on that small scale up way. Now, with the policy shift, I think the dynamics should be the private sector led, wherein people take farming.
Now, just so let's start it by understanding your journey as a farmer. How long were you a farmer, and what was the skill?
I've been in farming for the past 20-25 years, and everybody knows that Mr. Jusu Jamje have been into this practice for quite a long time now, starting from sorghum production, and we know the level where I took brewery in terms of local production and local content policy in this country. So definitely my drive as a private sector has actually proven that if this type of system is being encouraged and upgraded, Sierra Leone will soon be in the direct line to produce more and get more, and then take away our country from the present situation. Because if we are exporting, the country will get more income and then reduce the income balance, that, and it's only through private sector that can create more jobs for the people of this country. Because, like, let's take my own scenario, Jamje Farm. After 10 years, You know, we started in a very small way, but today I can assure, and everybody knows the level at which we are going gradually is, you know, we are not going at that faster speed, but we are actually seeing the development.
So you said you've been into farming for about 25 years,
yes.
Correct? So what has changed from being a farmer about 25 years now to now that Feed Salon is the president's flagship? It's number one on the government's agenda. What has changed?
A lot has changed. Because in the past, people hardly talk about farming, right? And with few of us that has taken the bold step doing farming, they've seen the changes both in our developmental strives and even our status as we compare 25 years ago when we used to work for people and then when we are now private sector. I can tell you, my sister, that farming, or people say there is money in the bush, although when people go there, they don't see it just like that, but there is money in the bush, and that the only way is through agriculture. And as I say, from the brewery stories, Samuel can testify. Today, we've introduced the production of our own local materials in this country, and it's same that drive that drove me into the rice production. As I can say, I am one of the highest producer of rice in this country. Everybody can testify that. I am cultivating over 7,000 to 1,000 hectares every year, and that is not a small tonnage I produce. So if really this kind of system is replicated, maybe 20, 30, 40, believe me, we'll be able to add more volume as local production, and we cut down the importation of the rice, because the government is spending so much on the importation of rice into this country, because rice is the staple food. And everybody is yearning to say, even if they eat everything, as long as they have not eaten rice, they will say, from morning I have not eaten. And Sierra Leone is a virgin country in terms of agriculture, and I continue saying this. The only way we can move forward this country is through agriculture. Thank God, my able, dynamic Minister of Agriculture is here, and he is not new in the ministry. He was there before, so there is nothing new for him to actually see how best we can move every activity of farming. Our people, especially the smallholder farmers, we are going to encourage them, but we have to a little bit shift to identify the key private sectors that can take the lead.
We'll soon talk on the role of private sector in this Feed Salon initiative. But nonetheless, Dr. Kpaka, it's a pleasure having you in the studios. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Samuel.
You're welcome. So just last week, the president was in the UK, and you were part of the entourage because I saw you on that video and I watched your interview. But nonetheless, the president made some strong statements in the UK that has to do with agriculture, the environment, and its implication on the economy. Help us understand, what's your key take-home on that particular day?
The world is, the global community is gradually beginning to see that yet again, His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Matabio, is showing another mantle of leadership in the space of transforming the food systems. We all know he has decided that for the next 5 years, Feed Salon is going to be the engine of growth, is going to be the engine of job creation, is going to be the engine of solving malnutrition problems in our country. But what he also wanted to do in that is to do that in a sustainable manner. If you've seen the news or the WhatsApp messages, you can see there's flooding in parts of the country where farmers have cultivated. This is as a result of extreme adverse weather conditions. It comes from the fact that at the global level, the way agriculture is done, if not done well, it's contributing to deforestation, greenhouse gas emission, loss of fresh water that we need, right? And so the president wants to say, we're going to do all those things that we say we're going to do in Feed Salon, but we're going to take care of not only the generation today, but the generation, many, many more generations to come. Now, I know for a lot of people right now that say, look, I'm thinking of my belly now. That's the easy thing. You're alive now, you don't know what's going to happen. But it is the right thing to do. Even in those hard circumstances, when we're making those trade-offs, that we do it thinking about the next generation. And that's why the president, and that's why he was recognized at this symposium to go share his idea. Sierra Leone is a co-chair for the Alliance of Food Systems Transformation. This alliance is made up of Brazil, Norway, Cambodia, Rwanda. We piloted the idea that, yes, the world has said we're going to do food systems in a sustainable manner. But we said we want to take it a notch further, raise the ceiling. And the president is championing that. And so that's why he went. And for us, we want to do it well. Our circumstances are very different from the other countries. Norway, Brazil, we're very different. But we're committed to do what we can to show the world that this is how you want to do it, even as you're tackling those challenges of today. But don't forget that we're doing this for the future as well. That's why the president went to Oxford. That's why he was invited to keynote. And he will be doing a lot more of these, because people are seeing that his approach of taking all of government to make those critical decisions, those critical trade-offs, is what's needed. The world is like, how do you do it? How do you show such leadership? How do you bring it together? That's why they invited him.
So one would be asking a question at this moment, because the president said the African continent has a potential not just to feed itself, but to feed the globe. Let's localize that statement to our own Sierra Leone situation. Where are we in terms of feeding ourselves?
That's a good question that you ask. October 16 is when the president launched Feed Salon.
So very true.
So we are in the thick of planning the 1-year anniversary of that. We will have a report out, and the president will go out somewhere again out in the provinces to celebrate that and bring farmers together. Since launching Feed Salon, and since I'm glad Mr. Jusu Jamje, who's been in the sector as a person doing this for a long time, is in the room, knows that for the past, forget this 1 year, but for the past 3 years, I can tell you, there's been a steady momentum for Sierra Leone feeding itself. So whilst we were preparing for this 1-year launch, I was not surprised to look at some really amazing data that shows when it comes to food importation that we're beginning to see that drop. I can give you some numbers from rice, for rice. Between 2022 and 2023, and by the way, and previous years also, we saw a drop. 2022, we imported $197 million worth of rice. 2023, 167 million. This year, from January to August, we're only at $54 million, telling us by the time we close this year, we would also have dropped that. That's rice. That's us feeding ourselves. Let me finish. That's onions. Same thing. 2022, $10.7 million worth of onions imported. 2023, 6.9. Again, 2024 is looking very good. It's not finished yet. Eggs. 2022, $2.47 million worth of eggs imported. 2023, 2.2. 2024 is looking good as well. Chicken, $12.9 million imported 2022, 2023, $10.45 million. This is data that is out there. We are beginning to see a steady decline in the importation of the food that we eat. This is one of the key objectives that we have in the Feed Salon strategy, and that's why we do the things that we do. We're not going to celebrate because there's a lot to do. Our initial goal is to say, let's reduce importation. But what we really want is for more people to be able to afford and get quality, nutritious food on their table. And on that front, all these efforts that President Bio is making is to be able to make sure we give farmers like Mr. Jusu here a competitive edge. How are we going to do that? I'm sure he will have told you that his cost of production is very high. It's very true. I've seen the numbers from different parts. When they do the maths, it will cost 1,400 millions for 50 kg bag. Imported rice will cost 900.
Yeah.
Right? This is just his cost of producing it. It's very uncompetitive. The reason why is because he needs diesel. Diesel we import, we don't set the price. He needs to pay labor. Labor costs have gone up. He needs to be able to transport the food to the place. Roads are bad. He needs to process. That's diesel. Costs are high. What we are doing is tackling these critical infrastructure issues so that when these costs come down, his costs can come down, and he can compete with people importing rice. And the community, the Sierra Leonean people, will enjoy a scenario where the rice that he's producing is affordable to them, and more people will see that it's profitable to be able to come into the venture, both locally and international. And when we do that, supply will come up, and then the level of price can also reduce. That's our goal. That's what we're working towards. But we're beginning to see these steady changes, even as we are closing down on the first year of the implementation of Italo.
The statistics seem very welcoming, but the realities on the ground is where the problem is. Because you already mentioned, the current state of rice farmers. They could just be one, but thankfully, so the president himself is also a farmer. Just last week, we saw he have about 7,000 eggs from the chickens that were in his farm. But the problem at this moment is, say for poultry, many farmers are still faced with huge problems, more so to compete with these, say, Lebanese and others who are into the project of importing eggs, which are not up to the quality of eggs that are produced within country. What has been the role of the ministry to see an harmonization, if not to not give advantage to local farmers, but harmonize the way things have been done?
We definitely need to give advantage to the local farmers. Let's not hide that. We need to do that. It's in my TOR. It's in my interest that our local farmers get an advantage to grow what they need to do. We need to do that in a smart way. We need to do that so that local farmers that are really trying to do this to succeed. If government comes and says we're just going to give blanket subsidies they're funny things. They can be good for a while, but then farmers get used to it, and when you pull it, and then when the government doesn't have money, it's really, really, really hard to be able to do that. So we need to think of smart ways where the people that want to apply themselves to reduce their costs, maybe they are innovative, maybe they monitor well, they do all these things, we encourage them a little bit, right? But those that are not going to do that, they will sink. That's just what markets and business is. So let's not forget. The egg is a very good example that you've chosen, because it really exemplifies this. We do want to support our farmers. It's one of those things. There are two parts to it. There are really two parts to it. Yes, the importers get it easy. We live in a community where tariffs and all these things are not frowned on as a policy.
Sure.
I mean, we're in the West Africa. There's free trade. The AFCFTA is Africa Free Trade Continental Area.
And even the country's constitution makes provision for same free market economy, where we all just get up our money and determine the price.
So what we have to do is, there are things that we can do. What we don't want to do is make sure eggs are being dumped in the market. The eggs that have come in since 3 months, 2 months, and they're dumping in the market cheaply.
Sure.
We don't want that. We want our standards bureau from trade and to monitor and make sure only quality food. We also, and I've engaged the Poultry Association. They need to really be able to come together and brand and say, this is made in Salone egg. This is and brand it. And we can get out there and tell our people, look, two things. One, this egg that you say you want so cheaply is actually not good. It's not fresh. This other one is way fresher and healthier for you. Second, it is a patriotic thing to do to pay the additional 2 leones. Because now I know Imported eggs, some 900 for a carton. The ones that local people are selling 1,200. To pay that little. Because when you do that...
I do not enjoy interrupting you, but I remember you were at the PCREF Food Systems Workshop.
Yes.
And nutrition formed a significant part of that conversation. In as much as we're pushing for food self-sufficiency, the conversation has also been about nutritional value of what people consume. When you look at the local food produced in country, it's much healthier, organic, and with the egg situation, it's not like how we were a couple of years ago where our eggs used to be very white, very tiny. Now it's brown and it's also bigger. And it's available, so to speak, but it leaves us with the knowledge for many people to understand that when you buy what's grown in Sierra Leone, it's more organic and it adds more nutritional value to you. That knowledge, the absence of it, forms also part of your work in collaboration with other institutions. How are you changing that narrative? Because if the farmers are producing and the Sierra Leoneans are preferring imported stuff to what's produced, we're still stuck in the same problem and it's affecting nutrition.
You're so right, Phoebe. I mean, I think this is the second year going into Feed Salon, our civic responsibility, which is the point I was trying to make, and you've articulated so well. We are producing food here. The rice that he's producing is healthier, it's better. People are not going to buy because it's 1,400 and then they can get rice that has been in the store for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years and they dump in here.
Yep.
We need to educate our people. You're right, it's in our remit. So second year going. When we launch, one of the main things we are going to take is this civic part of our job. If you are a farmer, as the president is demonstrating, please farm. If you have a small garden, do it. If you're a city dweller, don't have land or anything, you have also a role to play, which is buy what is made here for 2 reasons at least. It's good for you. It's really good for you. It's organic, it's healthier, doesn't have all the chemicals. Then you're also supporting your countrymen. Because if more Sierra Leonean people find that the business of agriculture is profitable, more people will get into it. And by the way, that's when the price comes down. That's the secret. So that's our call to people, and we will take that on in this second year going, because it's a big part of, that's my biggest realization, reflection. Doing 1 year of Feed Salon, I go there, I see farmers have eggs packed. I've gone across the country, I engage them. They produce rice. And I'm like, what? Like, people are not buying this? Oh no, we can't buy because they just want, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, countries that have done this, their civic responsibility of their community, of their people, to buy their own countrymen's product is a big part of it, and we need to take that on, and we will take that on.
Could taxation also form part of the solution, whereby giving the local farmers a competitive advantage to levy taxes on imported, especially in areas where we have more production in country, where you levy more taxes on the imported items, so it gives the local producers a competitive advantage. One would say perhaps that's better than putting taxes on areas where people would find it difficult to survive, like top-up and other things, but perhaps tax areas of imported things that we already have in country.
I like that idea. You and I, we would make very good friends. You know the situation. When you tax things, people will pass that on, and then the price level will soon be reflected. And in this day and mass of like, oh, price don't go up, all things don't there, people will never stop to think that the reason why we're doing this is to help our own farmers. Because essentially that's why people do that. I have suggested that, in fact, the Minister of Finance has raised for rice 5%. But will we, it is a big, for me, it's the technically correct thing to do. The political environment that we find ourselves, where quickly people jump in the streets, things have gone up. The fact remains, for a good 45% of the rice that we consume in country is imported. For a good 60% of the egg and chicken that we consume in this country is imported. If we tax that and the price goes up, unless we educate our people, it is the community, the country needs to decide we're going to do this together.
but it's bringing a loss on the local farmers, where their challenges are, unlike the imported items, they even struggle with storage facility, preservation. So the way imported eggs, imported chickens would be preserved, it's not the same opportunities that our local farmers have to preserve their own product. So it's time bound.
You're so right. And in addition to what you're saying, these people that are importing rice to us, their farmers have been subsidized by their government for years. So they have state-of-the-art facilities. So Jam J here can do maximum 4.5 tons per hectare on his farm, which is really good, by the way, under those circumstances. If on a good year, the guy in Thailand will do 12. Do the math. So he's able to process that, ship it here, and it's still cheaper because his research has got subsidies, good seeds, all those things. So look, there are two ways to this with this feed salon, and I think the president has articulated this and is bringing people along. That's why he went to Harvest, to show that he's doing this. That's one part of it. But the other part really is that government needs to support our farmers, and we would do some of that. We find ourselves in agriculture is expensive in a cash-strapped environment. That's just true. But Minister of Finance will pushing them. They will increase the budget. Hopefully, we're in conversation that we will hit that 10% mark.
Increasing the budget is one thing. It's the availability of the resources.
I know.
So in President Bio's first term, it was education that was the priority.
Yes.
Not too long ago, we had a conversation in the studio where school subsidy is a challenge. So the budget is there, the percentages are allocated to them, but the availability of the cash by the Ministry of Finance to dispense is another challenge. This leads us to, can't the government make certain tough decisions that are realistic, taking us back to the tax levy situation for some of these things that are realistic?
The government is making tough decisions, but I hear you. Part of what I'm saying, there are two options to this. Yes, the government side of it, and then really is the tax side of it. We have to do this as a people. Let it not just be President Bio saying this. If we wake up someday and say, look, we think really taxing this imported goods is what's going to help our local farmers compete, the country should own that. We should protect that process and drive that through. And the government can also own up its own responsibility of putting the little money it has. And by the way, it's not just government. As you know, the president goes out. A lot of what he does with all these priorities programs is raise money. We go out to bring private sector. And part of what we're trying to do with some of the monies we're raising is to build those roads, provide these energy sources, so that when the private sector comes, if they want to do a rice mill, they don't have to worry about putting up their own energy plants, because they need that, right? Government needs to provide that. That's what we're trying to do, right? I hear you so well. These are the issues I think about. Will our people, this is the technical thing to do. This is what every country has done. You can do it smartly. You can phase in your taxes for imported goods. Support your farmers a little bit. Be on the table as import is going down like this and local production going up. By the time they meet like that, you remove these things so that it's competitive. This is how it's done. In our environments, if we push that, you bet you're going to have people in the streets protesting that things have gone up, because eventually when you do that, the price gets passed through a little bit. That's the environment we find ourselves in, and we as a people need to decide what we want.
Dr. Kpaka, I know you are an economist, and of course you understand figures and you understand the market dynamics more so for the farmers. Respectfully, I will say, as you earlier mentioned, you go to several fields across the country. Of recent, I moved around 4 districts, went to Kabbalah, saw massive vegetable cultivation. You go to the north, you go to south, you see many things are happening. But the actuality is not seen on the farm. Where does the problem lies? Over time, we've had a lot of people who are blaming even farmers that yes, government has been supporting. Say, for instance, Cambia. A lot of support is going there, but during the harvest period, you see trailers coming in from the other end, say Guinea, to cut away all the produce of these farmers at their policies to see the need to amend same. Because the Guineans, they have the money to buy these products because they're fresh from our farmers.
Yeah, no, so this is another area. Last year, WFP bought 1,000 metric tons of rice for the school feeding program and put it in bag and branded feed salon, rice from here. When I saw that, and this is from support they got for the homegrown school feeding for Sierra Leone, I said, let us double that, and we're going to do that in these areas. The formula is simple. When I first took this job, the second month I went to Cambia, I engaged farmers there. They said the same thing. At the beginning, the Guinean traders will come, give them small inputs in the lean season, give them small cash to commit them to sell to them. We are trying to put the same thing in place. This year, I've said we will buy 2,000 metric tons of rice from that area. As of, I've engaged the BFP, we're going to sign an MOU then for them to work with us to do that. SLPMC will engage them to also beef up, to be able to get out there and collect rice, to buy rice from farmers as well, and match whatever it is that the Guineans are doing. We cannot stop trade. So here's the thing also. We need to support our farmers. For me, the farmers are number one. If he sees that selling to Guinea is the best choice for him because he makes money and makes the thing roll, I can't come and stop him. What I need to do is match what the Guineans are doing. It's the same thing. People are like, oh, farmers, the price let them reduce the price. No. If government hasn't done anything for them, if you haven't come and given them subsidy and you can't come tell them and say, this is how much you should sell your produce. No. Farming, people need to see that there's profit in it, and then they can make that investment. And there's one thing. They say, oh, poultry, actually, there's money in it. I also learned poultry is one thing. You can wake up one day, 2,000 chickens are dead. So if you're making small profit and you don't have enough backup to be able to replenish that, and somebody says reduce your profit, then you're going to, as they say, kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So for us, farmers are at the center. We give them the choice. We as government need to match it, and we're doing our efforts.
Dr. Kpaka will stay with us, and also Mr. Jusu, just stay with us. We'll come back to you. We'll go for a short break. It's just a minute over 9 from our studio clock. We'll be right back.
We'll go to citizens on their thoughts on the Feed Salon initiative.
Mr. President, about the agriculture.
Dear Mr. President, when it comes to agriculture, the sector will thrive if it is depoliticized. So you should place the right people in the right place, like real farmers. This will boost the sector.
The agriculture sector blow up so that food goes in the country.
Well, Mr. President, now we people learn. Then they upline some of them, you do this farming work, but the farming work they do, they know you get the material there for do this farm.
Dear Mr. President, our people who are farmers in the provinces cannot afford farm tools or equipment. Many who have been engaged in farming have moved to Freetown. If they are asked why, they will tell you it is because they lack the tools to work. Mr. President, please think about the farmers. Also, the cost of local products are so expensive. Look at how small 5,000 Leone pepper is in the market. Please consider supporting local farmers. Everything is now expensive.
For people in a village where they do this farming business, and for you go help them for this country go before.
Mr. President, me talk to you about the country, how things they go. The only thing they try for talk now for let the fuel go down.
Dear Mr. President, lowering fuel prices will reduce transportation costs, which will help lower the cost of goods.
Things must go down. But if the transport they go up, now so the thing they back just the dear.
The President Bio, good morning again. And the agriculture in the sense for salad, like me, so they talk to me na farmer. I've been putting 36, 70, 80 bushel na bush. Without no machine, na handwork. Na mine they go cut stick. Say you brush with one brush.
Dear Mr. President, I am a farmer and I used to harvest 30 to 70 bags of bushels in the bush without machine. My staff will cut down the sticks, brush and set fire. But now we only depend on imported rice in the market. Secondly, Equipment meant for farming is often used by people who are not farmers. You cannot claim to be a footballer if you do not prove it yourself. Look at Tomabo. Nothing to write home about. I went to Tayama a few weeks ago. Local rice cost 12 leones per cup. What will one expect of imported rice, which we rely on heavily? We're blessed in Sierra Leone as everything is in place. You can plant without watering the plant, but it still grows. Mr. President, this is going directly to you, sir. Some of the ministers will only give these equipment to their relatives. As a matter of fact, some of these machines are used to transporting timber instead. Mr. President, you really need to visit these places. You placed all the ministers in the city. They are not supposed to be here. They should be in the regions. But if you allow them to be at UE building, collecting brown envelopes, how do you expect the country to grow? This is your final lap. If you're able to provide food and boost agriculture, you will leave a legacy. If you do as you promised, but if you fail, this will be your final presidency.
Busy, you make a brand envelope, you go to how the country go, how let the country go before. It's not possible. Now you don't final time this where people left for left legacy. I go with left legacy now through food. If you able to confirm, you able to do this, but this food in business, you able to fulfill the promise. Finally, you name don't left, you don't left legacy, but between that and I final issue.
Indeed, welcome back. That was there, Mr. President, and we've heard from the reasonable man on the expectations on the feed salon agenda. I think every other Sierra Leonean is excited. He's excited, wanting to see, the magic being done within a day. But again, Dr. Kpaka, where does research sit in the feed salon agenda?
Research is very core to what we're doing. There are two things, the way we see research. It boils on, we're talking about climate smart approaches.
Sure.
We have people that are investing in knowing what are the best approaches to be able to employ, to have farmers adapt to climate change or adapt their practices. We have people that are doing that research, what works. Slurry, big support that they're getting to be able to do that. It also revolves around what are the best varieties. We're talking about flooding now. Flooding is an issue, but by the way, there are flood-tolerant varieties for rice.
Right.
Submergence-tolerant rice varieties, drought-tolerant varieties for that. It's about making sure, and they're doing this, breeding and seeing with our own local varieties to see what works. They're doing that in slurry. It's about nutrition, take nutrition. We are just about to launch, for the first time, the first, how are they calling it? I think it's like a diet balance sheet of the country. For the first time, they're about to launch that. Aflatoxin, which are some things that people don't even hear about. These are mycotoxins that are found, by the way, in groundnut and maize that we all like to eat. They are cancerous, they are deadly, they are small. We are doing study on it for the first time to understand the extent of which, and then what approaches we can bring to be able to address that. We need to understand that as well. We just did for the first time, we're going to launch this. In 70 years, we've mapped all the soils of this country in a 10 by 10 grid radius. What we're now doing is to do what we're calling crop response trials, where we go in particular areas to say, if we grow this particular crop here, what are the crop nutrient response trials? What type of nutrient do they want given the fertilizer? And then that will allow us to tell farmers, in this area, this is what you do. When you do all that research, you take that and push it to farmers to increase their know-how, right? So just before, so which is, we're saying feed salon, but the president has been laying the groundwork for this for a while. The last bill that they passed in Parliament last year, in the fifth Parliament here, was the Act for Slurry, to revamp Slurry, to provide, to make it possible that they have the provisions to keep the scientists there working and motivated. We are working to implement that now. There are challenges, but we passed that, the president signed that, and we're working to implement that. We're doing quite a lot to be able to make sure that research, if we don't do research, we will be catching up. And that's just one area. Now we are in the phase where AI and tech digital is a big part of what we're doing. So this year, by the end of this year, we will begin the process to digitally map all our farmers. Each farmer will have a unique digital ID tied to their name, a phone number. That will allow us to use all sorts of services to them, whether it's linking them to finance. Some people don't have collateral, but if you have a record and they can tie that to you, we can take that and sell that to people that can give you money. Say, look at the history of this person producing every year. You can tell, you can rely on them, but you can't do that if you don't have that data and information. All that is research and investment that we're making to be able to make sure we do the feed silo. I do want to say one thing in terms of support that we're giving. This year, 2 years ago, we did the credit facility, $10 million. Only 2 people got it and they paid back. I'm happy to announce this year, 6 people have applied and $8.5 million already been approved to be given to people. They took time, but that's because people are responding and they want to. And these are big private sector people that will use this money to do the things that we want them to do in our priority
While
areas.
that is good news, I remember the president of the Farmers Federation, Yatta, was very concerned about some of these opportunities and the criteria to access them. Her point was very solid. If they have all that huge collateral, nobody's going to worry themselves about chasing all these other opportunities. Anyway, you have it. And she was also saying that their farmlands also is a significant collateral.
Yes.
To have such a massive farmland that is rich to farm on, it's also collateral. But the loans they make, they are not farmer friendly. The opportunities available in the financing sector are not farmer friendly. Her point was, farmers don't plant today and harvest tomorrow, so they begin to pay back every month. It has to be quarterly or biannually. You heard her, you were there.
Yes.
What has been your response to her valid concern?
No. So precisely the agricultural credit facility that we set up 3 years ago, we improved on that. It's precisely to respond to this. Not everything, but we did take a huge chunk. Let me explain. If you go to the commercial bank now to get a loan, they will say 30-38% interest rates, and you have to pay them in 3 months. The stuff that I'm telling you about now that people have taken almost 85% off, when you go there, it's 10% interest rate, not 38, and you have a 90-day grace period, and you pay at the end of 2 years. Now, they still do ask for collateral here and there. They're fussy on that because they're bank people, and the reason why, we can't push them too much because, by the way, the last time we did this, government had 80% guarantee for the loan. This time, 0. So the commercial bank, we convinced them. I met with them like 4 times. They put up $10 million to respond to the president's call to engage. And we're making sure, and we're working very hard to make sure that next year it's more flexible and allows the lessons from that we are meeting that. Smallholder farmers, the loans we're talking about, this is people can get up to $1 million. Smallholder farmers are not yet going to be able to take that and use that. So this year we had 3 different sets of financing. We have credit facility for women-owned or operated businesses that you can take up to $5,000. We have a matching grant through the FSRP program, of which 500 people have applied, and maybe we'll be able to give 50. Right, targeting these areas, poultry in particular, where they can give a maximum $150,000. If you have a $300,000 business, you have 50% of that. They can give you the rest. It's a matching grant. These are the opportunities we've created, and lots of smallholder farmers are applying. People like himself should apply, and they have applied. This is what we're doing. UNCDF is a little bit too slow for us. They too have another model, $7 million, similar. They will give you, for them it's matching, but you have to take a loan for the match. They will give up to $200,000, 50%. If you say you have a business plan that is $200,000, they'll give you $100,000. The other $100,000 you take a loan from a bank, and we're pushing them to make it be no more than 10%. And we're far gone. And they will add insurance to that as well. They will give 4,000 insurance policies Q1 next year. 4,000 insurance policies to people that they support with these businesses to make sure they succeed. So we hear them. We understand. What we really want is an agriculture bank. a lending bank. And we have, and finally actually on this, we have at the local level, Apex Bank. Apex Bank. Which is a consortium of community bank, farmer savings association. So if you're a member of a community bank and you have shares there, you can take 4 times the amount that you put there. Anybody in the village can do this. It's working magic for people, right? So we have this in the space. Maybe people don't know about it, or it's hard to tell the impact of it, but these are all there. We are not satisfied. We're not saying let's go home now. No. The dream we have is to have an agricultural investment bank that are able to deal with a range of people in a sustainable manner. And that's what we're working
The concerns from the farmers over time has been the interest rate. As you earlier mentioned, it has been dropped to 10%. Am I right? But then it's just...
Commercial interest rate is 38%. What we've done to farmers is say we'll give you 10%.
But even the 10%, Josu, farmers have been clamoring for single digits over time. Is that commendable at this moment? You're a farmer.
I'm a farmer, and honestly, from the point of Dr. Kpaka, they have the policies. We really constrain with some of these policies at the bank. The government-owned side is nice, but when we go to the commercial bank, we are really constrained. So we are still asking to have further engagement. And honestly, there are a lot of questions from Fabian and you leading to Doc. Sometimes when we came from Dakar to Summit, you interviewed me. The first thing I said, now that we are going to really embark on agriculture, I asked, and I can still continue to ask, that if our minister, our president really want to succeed, let them engage some of the most important people or hard-working private sector people privately and passionately, because there is a proverb which says, whether you meet Nadakos, then they show you sit on place. Most of these problems Doc is analyzing, yes, is actually good, but we also have our experiences because we are working directly in the field. We have our good success stories that we may want to share. We have the gaps that we may want to actually sit together with them to actually discuss, and then from there is an assignment for all of us. Some of us, we are into this because we have passion. As I said, for over 20 years and more, since we have learned a lot of gaps, we have learned a lot of stories. Like few days ago, out of our own efforts we're doing, I have got a partner that is producing the world's best organic fertilizer in the world, which is called Davita. And I just forgot when I was coming. This fertilizer, you can even put it in your cup and drink it. We've done that. It's good for the poultry. It's good for the plants. I tested it when I brought the sample from US, right? About 10 liters bottle. The small area, about just 3 hectares. I sent pictures on WhatsApp messages and even YouTube. You saw that is going to give, let's say, from 2 tons to even 4 or 5 tons with our local materials. Excuse me.
Quickly, Dennis Josu.
Yes, quickly. So as he has so much to deal with, my own still appeal to them is let them have time to call some of, not everybody, because they already know, they have a database, you understand? So that we are all yearning for success. Let's put our shoulders together as how these things to be done. And also, when sometimes going out on these international conferences or meetings, let them expose us so that, because we as indigenous people, let's do things in our own way. If they train us, if we see opportunities out there, we share our stories. These are the times we will get maybe partners. It's not everything government. at the end of the day, is going to be left in the hands of private sectors. Private sectors will be working with our outgrowers, with our farmers. We are within the communities. Most of these problems, maybe we can solve it within the twinkle of an eye if we are sitting together to discuss. Some of these problems...
Dennis, just so quickly.
Yes.
Dr. Kpaka made a very salient point.
Yes.
You know, for many countries that we visited, say for instance, bigger countries like China, they have specific banks that are there for agriculture. We have Apex Bank in the country. Do you think it is time, in as much as there is a feed salon initiative in the country, do you think it's high time we do have a bank that is specifically there for agriculture?
Agricultural bank. When we went to Dakar, right, they also have similar things. But sometimes, even we, the local people, our ideas about how these things operate is so narrow that we sometimes, even the subsidies or the grants, they just think every year people can depend on, you know, supporting them. But until, as I say, we have some engagement meetings, we can cascade this information to our local farmers that these monies that are being placed in the bank is not government money. These are also private sector people that have placed their money. So if you take 5,000, you need to pay back. And, you know, there is one thing about we Sierra Leoneans. Anything that is associated with government, we take it with levity. We don't have respect for it. We just, now government money, we all for shape. And that is not the way. And until some people take this lead and then sensitize and educate people about it, then they will change their behavior. Behavioral problems is the major problem. Even at the end of the day, like the Guineans come in. Let's say, for example, you are a Sierra Leonean, love your country. Do it in your own Sierra Leone way. You have to love your brother. At the end of the day, we'll be able to achieve this collectively. But if everybody is just thinking about he or himself or herself as what comes to his pocket immediately, at the end of the day, honestly, the saddest mistake this country will make is if we allow foreigners to take the agriculture from the hands of we local people. Is going to be South Africa story or the other countries. That is why some of us, we saw this vision 10, 20 years ago that let's play a small leading role, that we encourage our brothers, because farming was just thinking about a poor man's job or somebody who is not educated. We go to, some of us, we have drawn a lot of people in this field now because they do admire what they go and see, and this is what we are also yearning. Please, Doc, get your time and get, you know, it's not everybody. With small number, you'll be able to see and then replicate these activities to other parts. Production intensification for now is very, very necessary as we go along. Agriculture is not going to be fixed within just 2 years, 3 years, because it has a lot of parameters. Like you talk about research, you talk about, but that local farmer who used to producing 1 acre, 2 acres to feed his family, now with the feed salon program, with FSRP and with government, he is encouraging private sectors to do 5 hectares, 10 hectares. That 5 hectare yield is not going to be consumable by that small household. The surplus, let's say like the 3 hectares, goes into the commercial stream. That is why we are seeing a significant drop. So if really we
see a drop, but the cost of rice particularly is very expensive. No,
just
a couple of days ago I bought rice for over $1 million.
No, the cost, you know, the cost of production. As he says, these people are doing massive production.
You're right.
Right?
You're right.
And hybrid production. We are still at the embryo stage of doing things. But if we come together...
Then it's just, we just hope and pray that things get better. But quickly, Mr. Minister, just last week, a team of experts from across Africa were in Sierra Leone. They went to the ministry with, they spoke of cassava, which is the second staple food, and they spoke of the Uganda variants, just as, you know, the mosaic virus. its devastation that it's currently having on cassava in Guinea, which is very close to Sierra Leone. We know when Sierra Leone sneezes, Guinea do catch cold, and when Guinea sneezes, Sierra Leone do catch cold. Are you concerned about the alerts that they've raised already on cassava?
Yes, but I think we're actually preemptively, so this team that came here, they didn't just come. I was at Gate Foundation, I engaged them, they said they'll send people.
Sure.
Before I was at Gate Foundation, another team of experts said, this thing is happening. We are, for now, we haven't seen, but we want to be preemptive in our response to it. So that's being done. And actually, when it comes to cassava, it's one of those things where our farmers in the sub-region, our yields are better, our practices are better, and we want to keep doing that. And by the grace of God, by the time Q1 2025 comes, we will have a big cassava project to industrialize, to move away from just gari and things like that, but really begin to produce flour, ethanol, starch. That's where we want to take our cassava bit. So, which is why this work that is being done is very important. Let me respond to Mr. Jusu's point. I hear you clearly. I think what I hear you say is a deliberateness in our approach, where there are people that I know, and I've been to your farm. I was very impressed when I went to his farm, biggest farm. When I came, this is the first harvest I did, was on his farm last year. There are people like you and others out there that government needs to look at and say, you are doing well. How can we sit down and support you? I hear you. That deliberateness is needed, not only for rice, but across the value chain, because a few countries have done this very well. There's a trick in it. It's called picking winners. Yeah. Some of the winners will end up becoming losers and say, why did you pick them? And then we're in a democracy. You have to have an open playing field for everybody. But I hear you. I think deliberateness in our approach is what you're calling for. And we have already said private sector is a key part of how we're going to do this. And that's why we extended the credits. That's why even the machines that we gave, we said, government's going to take it, you run it, right? We've tried a few things to have the private sector there, but I think you're asking for us to be more deliberate in this approach, and we've heard you, and we can go in that direction because I think it's needed going forward. We need to quicken our pace. We need to be innovative. We don't have a lot of time to be able to build momentum and show that this thing works.
As we try to round off, climate change does have its own impact even on the agricultural sector. What's the ministry doing to sort of be ahead of it so our farmers don't continue making losses due to weather conditions in country?
We're doing lots of things, and at various levels. One is, climate change is going to come. Part of what we need to do is to two things. First, make sure our farmers are adapting, that they know the right techniques, they know the right skills, they have the right technology to respond. Second, when disaster happens, which it will happen, that we're able to come to their aid, which is why we're working very hard to have that insurance in place. And in those isolated cases, as we're seeing now, for example, this flooding, I have a team out every district to see where this has happened, and we'll do an assessment, the extent of the damage, and what needs to be done, if anything, and we will respond. It's our job. But really, to the farmer and their practices, is teaching them, if you do your crop in ridges on a hill in a certain way, you won't get erosion. If you use this particular type of seed in this area, you know, these are the things that we're working. So, and that's at the local level. I told you we're co-chair to the Alliance of Champions of Food Systems Transformation that precisely is trying to see how we build resilience in our food system and food production. And so it's a core part of what we're doing at the global level. We've held ourselves to 10 key indicators that are really very hard to achieve, but we say we will challenge ourselves to do it, and it's to help our own bits to reduce the effects of climate change resulting from our agriculture that we are practicing here. Next year, one of the things that we are doing, we've already discouraged slash and burn. We say as government we won't provide support to those type of farmers doing that. We're going a step further next year. inland valley swamps for rice production. We'll do the tractors and all those things. You will see me a lot in swamps next year, developing those swamps, because you can do those multiple times. They help you conserve the environment, and that's one of our ways we're trying to reduce our own impact on climate resulting from the work that we're doing.
Thank you very much. We need to round off this segment. But Jusu, your rice, you spoke about the massive production. There was questions on our page about where is the rice then? Your rice.
Where is
your rice?
Where is my rice? My rice is around, and we've been eating our rice. My first
around where? So to those listening and watching who would say perhaps
first of all,
they want to buy from Jamj,
okay,
where do they buy your rice?
Okay, Jamj supply FSRP with certified seeds, and I supplied this year over 1,000 farmers.
To those people who want to eat.
Oh, you want rice to eat now? Then
where do they access your rice?
No, for now I only supply WFP with 500 bags this year. We have a capacity gap. I did most 70% on seeds, which I supplied, certified seeds to our farmers, and then the grains which I had. Jamj do not have a plant on his own to produce quality milling, that is to destone and mill.
So the answer is your rice is not available in public for people to buy?
No, it's available because I'm part of the school feeding. I supplied WFP. I've just spoken.
Yeah, so you have customers you supply. So the ordinary people cannot go and buy. You already have customers you're supplying.
The demand far outweighed my supply for now. So
business is moving there.
That's an excellent question you asked Jamj. I've pushed them a little bit. Yeah, so people like Jamj, they're doing really well. The business of rice, when you get into it, you begin to figure out. People that sell seed, for some reason, seed is more expensive than grain.
Than grain, sure.
And so they prefer, he's a business person, he prefers to sell seed than make grain. But I've pushed them. Let's have people that are doing grain, let's have people that are doing seeds, because we do want to see those rice in the market. We do.
That's the whole point of Feed Salon. So
yeah, the problem is the meals.
I am not saying make it cheaper. I'm just saying make the rice available. To convince our people to buy it.
Yeah, but quality production. That is why, you know, sometimes people do grumble that, oh, we don't want to eat our locally produced
I really
rice.
don't want to be rude, but we've also held a minister who has a meeting, and we've dragged this on. I'm so sorry. The conversation on Feed Salon doesn't end today. It's a continuing conversation. We will definitely continue.